The main myth is that there are bad and good aspects. The opposition and the square are classified in the bad aspects, dissonant, and the trine and the sextile are the harmonious aspects, therefore kind. The conjunction is considered a neutral aspect. An important point: harmony does not equal positive events, and tension does not equal bad things that could happen to us. Harmony describes aspects as a flow. They change the situation smoothly. This applies to the transits, to the primary directions, and to the secondary progressions, to all methods. There are no abrupt changes of circumstances. There is a probability of laying off in the company. You have been warned about it, and one day the dismissal occurs without being a surprise for you. Nothing takes you by surprise, which would break the usual course of things. Accidents, layoffs, and stressful situations can happen during a harmonious aspect. But if such events occur during a harmonious aspect, it means that you have ruined a harmonious aspect since it manifests on its lower pole. However, let us remember that harmonious aspects personify the fluidity of energy. At the moment of the event, you cannot objectively determine whether this event is good or bad. Perhaps it seems terrible to you now, and in a year you will understand that this was the best thing that happened to you in your life. How do you know if resigning is a good or bad thing? Perhaps this departure will bring you to launching your own project, or you will find an even better job. The conjunction is a very subtle aspect, and everything is simple here. As soon as the conjunction causes any negativity, tension, or sabotage, this means that the transit planet must be deactivated immediately. For example, Pluto in transit conjuncts Venus, and this will be a long period. In the sphere of money, I need to break through, take risks, learn to invest, conduct a risky financial policy. But as soon as this strategy of behavior causes problems with partners and with finances, this strategy does not produce results but sabotage. I must deactivate temporarily the transformative planet. Two energies meet, one comes on top of the other. When the transiting planet comes on the natal planet, this implies the arrival of new energy and that the person must learn to interact with it. During a transiting trine, circumstances are triggered easily. This does not necessarily mean that it is good or that it will be a positive event. You can be fired during a trine, but this situation will come up easily when the boss calls you and says, "In 6 months there will be a restructuring in the company. Get ready." You will definitely be fired. You still have time to work a little, to find a new job. There is no sudden explosion, no shock event that catches you off guard. However, the situation with the dismissal already began to unfold. Being at the initial stage, though easily, without our energetic involvement, the event entered our reality on its own. Square 90 degrees. The square answers the question of what is a deficiency of the receiving planet. If you don't compensate it, there will be a problem. The aspect is governed by Mars. What is the natal planet missing? The square reveals a problem, a crisis, a tension, because we are deficient in a certain essence. At the level of psychology, the square is the aspect of Mars, of Aries. It is about the alchemical process of calcination. We are deficient in a certain essence. It must therefore be calcined, heated. Saturn squares Venus. Our money management lacks control, rigorous management, equitable distribution of money. Saturn does not say that you must restrict yourself in money matters, but that there is not enough of competent distribution of finances. Saturn squares Venus. Saturn at the lower pole gives the effect that I decided to control the money, put it aside an amount for 4 months, without touching it, but as soon as I start to do it, a friend calls me who urgently needs this money. She tries to touch me, evoking pity. The tool of the square will always be a provocation. It tells us directly that we must change a bad trait of character, and this trait constitutes our weakness. If we succumb to these emotions and give the money to the friend, we are done. The square shuts and gives negativity. The problem is that the lower pole of the transforming planet, whether in the radix or in the transits, is always very comfortable and reassuring for the native. It will be easier for the person to act according to the lower pole of the planet. The square will try with all its might to put obstacles in our way. It will heat us up, calcine, like an alchemy. Either you will pass this test and develop this quality in you that you lack, or you will not pass this test, and then the square will create a problem. There is another opinion that, on the contrary, the square should not be alimented by negativity, that it is even better to avoid it. Try to do so. And you will see what happens if you ignore it, especially the squares of the social and slow planets, and especially when you are in the last phase of the retrograde loop, or simply in the separating phase of the aspect when its effect is felt the most. You will witness yourself the disaster. In reality, the lower poles of the planets are not talents, not qualities. They will always be the subjects of our false talents. It is the false comfort zone. It is just easier for us to act this way. The upper pole of the planet that forms the square is always our shadow manifestation. The term is familiar to those who deal with psychoanalysis. The square is our shadow that hides our talents. Opposition 180 degrees. What should we renounce in order to achieve comfort? The strict condition is to resist the temptation to cling to it, to keep this essence. The aspect is ruled by Saturn and Venus. Its meaning, its significance are totally opposite to those of the square, because in the opposition there will always be an excess of energy. If in the square we have a total lack of energy that must be compensated by adding a specific essence, then the opposition is on the contrary the excess, the surplus, that must be renounced in order to have comfort, which is very difficult to do and will not be easy to achieve. The opposition is a trigger aspect. It is the last in the list of aspects, being responsible for digestion or purification in alchemy. Pluto opposition Venus. I was living my normal life when transiting Pluto aspected the natal Venus. Suddenly I decided to have plastic surgery, or I see that there is a lot of tension in my relationships. I demonstrate my excessive activity, my initiative to the partner. The opposition will always provoke. The periods of opposition are very often associated with the fact that the person suddenly does something that she had never done before, or something that she would have never done. Jupiter opposed Venus, and suddenly the person feels that nobody appreciates her, that people don't respect her enough. The opposition activates these things and the person loses her temper. The essence of the opposition is a total discharge of energy. Saturn formed the opposition to the moon and activated excessive control and attention, responsibility, disproportionate discipline. These attitudes are activated with excess. We have the excess of the planet forming the opposition. The native may feel the opposition in another way, whether in the birth chart or in transits, both on a psychological level. Jupiter in opposition to Venus. You really think I'm wasting money? Well, I am not. I only spend on the essentials. Or Saturn in opposition to Venus. The person has a feeling that she does not manifest enough of control, that she is not responsible enough. Deep inside, the native feels that he doesn't have enough of the essence of the transiting planet forming the opposition, and that he may need even more of it. Saturn in opposition to the Sun. The person has the impression that she doesn't control everything enough in the project, that she is not responsible enough, that she has to do everything in an even more systematic way. The more the person recreates a kind of a system or rules, the more the tension will grow within her. Deep inside, at the level of inner intention, she will still consider that it is not enough. If I make an effort and speed up a little bit more, everything will be fine, better. This does not happen, unfortunately. It is necessary to reset, delete, eliminate the planet that forms the opposition. This is the condition that ensures the advancement. That's not all. Jupiter is an ambitious planet, quite aggressive. Jupiter in opposition to the Sun can arouse intolerance and annoyance, especially if others don't listen to me, don't notice me, or don't appreciate me. How to replace Jupiter with Mercury? I want to become an astrologer. What astrologer exactly? Specializing in what sphere? How much do I want to earn? How many clients do I want to have per week? It is necessary to translate all abstract things into numbers. Otherwise, Jupiter will burden us with his dreams and expectations. The opposition is associated with virtues. The planet in opposition is a sin, symbolically speaking. What virtue is born when we change Jupiter for Mercury? Tolerance. Jupiter gives impatience and irritation when something doesn't go my way. But I will have the impression that I am absolutely right, that I have not fully proven to be right, that I have not fully defended my Jupiter. The native has the impression that there is not enough of the planet in transit during the opposition. The square of Jupiter to the Sun will give the opposite moment. The person, according to the lower Jupiter, will criticize herself. The world will offer her opportunities to improve her standard of living, but the person will refuse everything. She will say to herself, "But what am I doing? I will never dare to change my life. I don't deserve it. There are others smarter and better than me." Neptune sextile Mars. Mars is associated with work, activity, and physical activity. I must not say anything at all to anyone about a single matter. If it was a trine to Mars, then I should have not talked about all my affairs at all. I would have needed the energy of inspiration to be able to work effectively. With the sextile, we need the energy of inspiration for just one single thing, for a specific task. The transiting planet creates a problem in the natal house of its passage that must be transformed. Otherwise, the house receiving the transit will suffer damage. This house must be broken, changed from top to bottom, transformed entirely. The natal house in question is obsolete, and if we do not update it, if we do not renew it, then the natal planet and the house that receives the transiting aspect will be destroyed. In the square from house 12 to house 8, the 8th house lacks the 12th. House 12 is not easy to handle in transits. It is the house of rituals. When we visualize the periods of time in the future, when we want to develop our projects. It is the house of setting trends, the house of wild nature. I lack communication with the unconscious, spending time outdoors, communicating with wild nature. I lack all the symbols of the unconscious, so that my reality accelerates. If the transit is long-lasting, then I have to ask someone for help or do things with the hands of others. If I do not ask for help, if I do not fit into the archetype of a defenseless person, then the crisis in the 8th will get worse because of the 12th. The event layer works interestingly. The transiting planet causes the activation of the natal house by creating a necessity in it. We have to renounce the natal house and turn in favor of the house receiving the transit. The opposition always provokes us to activate the natal house. It creates a counterbalance between the houses on the axis. It begins to create a need in the natal house. We see a real need in it now. The transit opposition of the 8th forms the aspect to the 2nd. The subjects of the 2nd house become important, relevant. What should we do? We must renounce the natal house in favor of the transit house, not touch it at all. Any action in this house will fail. During an opposition, everything always begins without any sign of a storm, unlike the square, which is a simple and evident aspect. A problem arises and it must be solved. But the person does not want to solve it. She doesn't have the time or resources for this. She doesn't want to deal with this problem, and therefore the square sabotages us. The square asks us a simple question. Do you want this? Go for it, break through, get out of the comfort zone. The opposition, on the contrary, pushes us to act, provokes us to action, makes us swallow false options, false opportunities that are sometimes abundant. There was nobody in my life for years, and then suddenly I have a list of candidates for partners. I suddenly experience conflict situations. I accept compromises, concessions, and it's all just a trap. During the trine and the sextile, situations occur easily and trigger events quite naturally. We can take advantage of them, seize these opportunities. They often present themselves to us effortlessly. They do not come in by the window. It's not that simple. But still, if you have a trine or a sextile from house 9, then you have an opportunity to follow a new, unique course on the market. For example, a trainer comes to your city and you suddenly have access to a new source of information, or a friend suggests that you attend a training course. An opportunity, an event comes from outside by the hands of others. Take situations with layoffs. A trine to the ruler of the 10th house, which is an afflicted planet. A friend or a colleague said that layoffs in the company are on the horizon, and this information was confirmed later.